Hi all, thanks for joining today's webinar about full invoice to pay. It's a demo about our APRO software, which will show you how to process an XML invoice, an e-invoice into Oracle, but also I will show you how to create the payments with our payment solution, also by picking up the payment files out of Oracle and processing them to your bank. So first, the agenda. So I will do a short introduction of myself. Then I will tell a bit more about e-invoicing, also how it works with APRO and e-invoicing, and of course, our banking gateway to process all your payment files to the bank. So we create the right payment format and send the payment to your bank to make sure that it will get approved by the bank. Then I will give a short demonstration how this works. So it's really by processing the invoice until it's paid. So the payment is made in the bank. And then last but not least, we can do a questionnaire about the product. So if you have questions, I can give the answers for it. First, short introduction. My name is Peter. I'm working at APRO for almost a decade. I have more than a decade experience with Oracle Financial Cloud and Oracle e-Business Suite, both on payments and both on e-invoicing. So also for the AP and the AR side of Oracle. So a bit more about the facts of APRO and also about the invoicing. So let me show you the core features of e-invoicing. So what are the main things that are needed or are actually e-invoicing? It's automation, because all the invoices that comes in, they can directly be mapped to all your header and line detail fields, and it can be sent to your ERP system. So the first part is automation. Second part is standardization, because a large group of countries already are using like the PEPL network, which is a global e-invoicing network. All the formats are the same on this PEPL network. But what we also see, of course, is country-specific invoices, which are based on a government platform. The third one is real-time reporting. So what happens is that if you send your invoices to the tax authority, because you need to send them first to the tax authority before they can be sent to the customer, they already can collect the tax out of the invoice. So basically, you're already sending your tax details to the government for each single invoice, and they can collect all that information before you have to do your tax for a certain period. Then the third one is the digital signature. So it's sometimes also included in an XML that there is like a secured envelope around the invoice to make sure it's identical and it's secure so that no one can open the actual invoice. E-invoicing, it's a global adoption. It's not only in Europe, but it's also in India, B2B and B2G already for some companies. Latin America, like Brazil, Mexico, and Chile, they are really like the pioneers of making it as a mandate to send invoices by XML and also send them to the government. United States, it's upcoming. They are also adopting e-invoicing. It's a bit like the old EDI, where you send your XML invoices over from supplier to customer. But now it's like they are probably also going to choose for PEPL to have like a global standard network, which each company can use to send and receive XML invoices. So it's not anymore by email, but it's all going through a server-to-server connection. So what is the impact for your business? You need to be compliant for each country that you have a legal entity in. So for example, for Spain, you have to have an SDI certificate to send or receive your invoices. And you have to create the right format to make sure that your invoice is accepted by the government. Then, of course, there is dashboarding, which is also really important because you will get notification and acknowledgement if your invoices are validated, yes or no. So this is also really a change how you now send your invoices. If you send the PDF invoices over, you don't get a notification. You don't know if it's received, but if you send them by e-invoicing, you will be. Third part, interfacing to Oracle. It means that your XML invoices, they need to be processed into Oracle. So how are you going to do this part without having the right setup in Oracle? Oracle has a platform, but you have to do a lot of development for each single country to make sure that the format can be handled by APRO. Then automation, of course, you want to have your invoices processed seamlessly to Oracle. So with PDF, you had to do OCR recognition to make sure that all the header and line details are recognized. For an XML invoice, it's all mapped It's all structured in the XML, so it's far more easy to do automation on the AP process. And last part, of course, make sure that you have the connections to the government portals or to the PEPL network to send and receive your invoices for the mandates that are upcoming for each country. So these are the mandates that there are now in 2025. So a number of countries on the left side, and for next year, we have also a number of countries that will start with the mandates of e-invoicing, both for AP and the AR side of your company. So it's really important not only for the incoming invoices, but also for the outgoing invoices. So what happens next? Your invoice, it needs to be paid. And yeah, APRO has also a payment solution to make sure that your payment file is picked up, which saves a lot of time, because now if you create a payment, you have to make the right payment banking format that it will be accepted by the bank. And also, if you have one transaction in your whole payment batch, the batch will get disapproved and you have to create the whole batch again. This just costs you a lot of time. It gives you a lot of frustration for your people. And of course, you could lose a lot of discount if you're paying too late because, yeah, the payment file is stuck. And of course, it's a big, high involvement of your IT if you don't have a solution that can create the right format and to make, of course, the connectivity to your bank. So what does APRO for you on the banking part? So the payment part, we can automate the full process. So we can pick up your payment format. We make sure it's the right format. We have more than 1900 banking formats. We have built-in approvals. So if you have to send payment batches or payment files to different kind of banks, you can do the approval within APRO instead of logging in into several banks to make sure that the payments are made, etc. And of course, we have a seamless Oracle integration to make sure with APIs that everything is moved in the correct way. And if you void a transaction, it's directly visible within the APRO system. So you can just void one transaction out of a full payment batch to make sure that the rest of the payment batch can still be processed. So eventually it saves you a lot of time, a lot of money, and your staff is happy because you have a seamless payment process. This is how it looks for the payment outbound. So we pick up invoices. Eventually the invoices needs to be paid because they are due. We create a payment batch, then the invoice, then the payment batch goes to APRO. APRO creates the right format and it moves straight to the bank with a host-to-host connection or the connection that you need for that specific bank. Then if the bank accepts it, you will get the acknowledged files back, and the acknowledged files go straight to your customers. So your payment files are within your customers, but also the acknowledgement file from the bank. If the payment is accepted, it will be transferred from the bank to you and visible within APRO in the dashboarding. APRO will send out the payment specification to your customers automatically if that is needed as well. So now we go to the demo. I start with the suppliers. So I start with 2 suppliers, which comes in by an SFTP connection. This is a bit look like how it should be done on the platform, government platform. APRO picks up this AP invoices and will process them to Oracle. Eventually, we will also make the payment for those 2 invoices to make sure that the payment can be done. So let's go now to the actual demo. So here is my connection. I will pick up the 2 files and they are transported to a certain server and APRO will automatically pick them up. How does this look? We go to the website of the APRO Cloud Solutions, we log in, and then we have a kind of look and feel as it looks in Oracle. So on the left side, we have the menu options to go to several processes like AP automations or payments. For now, first, we go to the AP invoice automation. And then we can see we have 2 invoices ready, which are processed by APRO. So if I can select one, then I can see the invoice which came in, and then I can see that I can do the payment for this particular invoice. If I wait, I can also go to the import overview and I can check if new invoices came in. So eventually you can see there's another run created, which is just done this afternoon. But if we wait, then probably a new invoice will be fetched as well. As you can see, new invoices comes in by several sources, by email, could be invoicing, could be something else, because you can connect several sources to APRO. and eventually the invoices will be picked up and they will be moved to the process folder. So we just have to wait until APRO picks up the files and it starts collecting all that information. If we go back to the workbench where APRO saves the invoices because they need to be validated upfront, APRO will check if the invoices could be sent to Oracle. For example, we have validation holds. So here it says the invoice already exists in Oracle. Let me change this number to make sure I can process the invoice to Oracle. So now I'm clicking on Save and Validate. Invoice will be processed to Oracle. So this is how easily you can send your invoices to Oracle. Again, invoice is already known in Oracle. I can click on Save and Validate. The coding is in, everything is in. So I've just moved 2 invoices to Oracle, and now invoices are moved to Oracle. If I go back to the import overview, let's see if my 2 invoices are collected. Here you can see I have 2 new invoices come in. So the XML is now recognized, and eventually the invoices will be placed into my workbench if the XML is fully recognized. You can see new invoices just came in again. So here we have 2 invoices again, and the invoice could be sent to Oracle. The invoices are now moved to Oracle. So also in the invoice history, we can check the full process if invoices are processed, yes or no. So if I look at today, I have several invoices that are moved, and here you can see sent to Oracle. So if we just wait a few seconds, the invoices will be now moved to Oracle and eventually be ready to be to be catched up for payment file. Because what I did, I placed those payment method on immediately, so the invoices will be due immediately when they hit Oracle. So we just have to wait until these invoices are processed, and then we can go to the banking gateway. If I go to banking, I have here an overview of payments. And then in my workbench, I can see all the invoices that still, payment batches that still needs approval, or where a file needs to be created. So here you can see the payment file for a certain bank. I can see the transaction. And if the payment file needs to be created, I can create payment file. This is just for the demo. Normally, it will automatically create the payment file. And when it's complete, the payment file is created, and here you have the payment file, and it's placed now also on an SFTP drive to the bank. Here's the report that everything is sent out. So the payment letter, the creation details, etc. And also, eventually, if the payment is made, your customer will get a notification that it has received the payment. So if I open the payment specification to your supplier, they will receive the message that the invoice is paid. So this is basically the full process from end to end for payments. Now let's go back to the invoices, which we just processed to get them picked up by APRO or by Oracle to make the payment. So now we can see they are done and they are now moved to Oracle. So if we look up these invoices that we just processed, we can go to Oracle itself. Oh, let's open Oracle. And now we can see that the invoice is in. So the invoice is validated and it's still is, we have to pick up the personal one. So if I go to this invoice, I can see that the invoice is validated. The XML is automatically attached in Oracle. So basically what I can do right now is I can create the payment file for these 2 invoices. If I would now go back to APRO, I click on refresh. I can also see then in Oracle eventually that they are approved, so that they are ready for payments. So if I now go back to Oracle, And let me go to payables again and to payments. I start a payment process for the invoices that are due. So let me submit from a certain template a new payment process. So let's call it webinar 99. Submit. And now we create a payment batch in Oracle Cloud. So we just have to wait until it fetches all the right payments. There we go. Here we have our batch. Our 2 invoices are picked up by the batch that we just processed. Now I click on submit. And within APRO, you can add the approval flow if needed for a certain payment file amount. So if you have a payment file which is maybe below $1,000, then it will not hit the approval and it goes straight out to the bank. So here you can see the file again. Resume payment process. So this file, because it's below 500 euros, it doesn't have to go to the approval flow. So APRO will just pick up the payment file when it's ready, and eventually it will create the payment file. And the payment files are then visible within APRO. So now we just have to wait, waiting for payment file to be processing. So eventually it will be moved to complete. And now within APRO, the payment file will be visible in a short minute because APRO is fetching all the payment files out of Oracle. So if we now go back to our APRO solution and we go to the banking gateway, then here we have create file and in progress. And we see that one is rejected. One of more payments is rejected. This is not the one that I just created, but it's a different one. But you can also see the process of each single batch that is in process. And here you can see why is it rejected. And then you see needs revalidation, need to validate supplier. So something is wrong with the supplier master data for these 2 specific transactions. And that's why it is not processed to the bank. Actually, it's already ready. So here you can see the payment batch. It's fully automated. So it creates the payment batch for the specific bank. You can download it. It's already sent to the bank. And what happens now eventually in the background is that APRO will also get the payment file as well. And we can do that for each single bank in the world. So we have so many banks that we connect to nowadays. That we can basically connect to any bank and make sure your payments are done automatically. And now in the background, I will receive all the information from the payment files, and those are sent to the suppliers. So basically, this is the end-to-end. You don't really have to do much within the APRO system. Like I said, we don't have anything to approve because the file was below the 500 euros. And it's already in completion. So we already created the payment batch in Oracle. And like I said, you will get the notification, your customers will get the notification out of APRO that they've received an invoice payment of €6 at the moment for this particular invoice. And what's not shown in this demo is the acknowledgement file, but we can also have the acknowledgement file in to do the approval. So basically, this is the end of the demo for this particular part. So we process 2 invoices. We made them validated in Oracle. We're just validating with them in APRO. Then if the invoices are validated in Oracle, Oracle can pick up the payment batch and make sure that the payment or the invoices are within the payment file. APRO picks automatically up the created payment batch, and it creates the payment format for that specific bank, and it sends it automatically to the bank. No approval is needed for this time. What else? We could also have the approval, of course, of the invoice or of the payment file to make sure that the payment is done.
So